This is Dance is Us, a series of podcasts produced and presented by ÄÄFinMalta during the COVID-19 crisis. The program aims to highlight the myriad ways dance features in our lives, reminding us that everyone has a relationship with movement and everyone has an experience of dance. It's also an opportunity to draw on the opinions, ideas, and perspectives of the many voices in our cultural ecology. We've been talking to dancers and choreographers, as well as artists working in other disciplines, policymakers, curators, writers, directors, and thinkers. So for week 6 of Dance is Us, we've extended our discussions around dance, movement, and the body to the realm of contemporary art. Dance gained momentum as an art form in the mid-20th century and has since not only firmly claimed its place in an ever-expanding field, but also become an important point of reference in curating and creating visual and performance-based art. To encourage a wider understanding of dance as an art form, this week we're shining a spotlight on some dance artists and choreographers and opening up a broader discussion of contemporary art in Malta. Núria Guiu is an artist based in Barcelona. Her education is in classical dance and she's currently completing a degree in Anthropology and Human Evolution. As a dancer, Nuria has worked with some of Europe's most progressive companies, including Cullberg Ballet, Gisele Vienne, Carte Blanche Dance Company, and Batsheva Dance Company. Nuria also works as an independent choreographer, and in 2021, she'll be creating a new work with ÄÄFinMalta. So it's my great pleasure now to welcome Nuria to Dance is Us.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I'm beginning each podcast with the same question, which is, tell us, what is your earliest or most vivid memory of dance?
Yeah, that's difficult to recall, but I do have a memory from when I was maybe about 4 or 5 years old. It was my birthday party, and I remember I was in the living room with my cousin, just dancing. We had a song from Lambada, which was a hit in the 89. I don't know if it was a hit in Malta. It was a hit definitely in Barcelona. And I remember having this feeling of just going in an infinite. I could have go infinite, putting this song again and again and again, just holding hands and kind of sliding my feet on the floor with my cousin, and at the same time having like the feeling that I had no judgment at all about how I looked or how I was supposed to dance or not. I don't even know where I got those steps or this idea of holding hands and just sliding feet on the floor. I don't know if it's that we saw it somewhere, if someone told us to do it this way, but I remember this feeling of not having judgment at all and going in an infinite dance. I could go infinite with that.
Just tell us, where did you grow up and what were your aspirations and what drew you to a career in dance?
Yeah, I grew up at the outskirts of Barcelona in kind of a small city. And I don't know, I remember also I was very young, and maybe it was about the 91, 92, where the Olympic Games came to Barcelona. And I remember I was watching TV and there were a lot of gymnasts. And I remember being very passionate about this physical force, especially when I would see like young girls or like women. I think I never saw such a like strong woman body doing this kind of trainings, in that case on TV. And I remember telling to my mom, I want to be a gymnast. And she told me there was no gymnastics in my city. So she told me she would bring me to a place that maybe I could enjoy, that it wasn't gymnastics, but would be something similar. And then she took me to a dance school. And in the beginning I was a bit like, but this is not gymnastics. But at the end, I'm so happy that by coincidence it happened that I got to approach movement from a more artistic, maybe perspective, from a more creative perspective. So this is how I started, and I remember just enjoying a lot going there. And
what kind of dance school was it? What type of dance were you learning?
Yeah, at that moment it was classical dance. It was ballet. So this is how I started, and I, for some reason, I enjoyed a lot the precision of things, or maybe again, like I saw some kind of power in my teacher who was a woman, and I think I was not used also to see this kind of like leadership. You know, she was the leader of this class, and we would all follow what she would say, and I enjoyed that. I liked it, and I kind of follow. So I just did it and did it. At some point, I was also fed up with the classical dance. I have to say, I decided to quit, and then I went to football. I went to circus. I did all kind of things, unless ballet. And then later, I went back to it. I went back to dance in a more contemporary way. But the thing is that if you like to do something, it's you go back to it, and it's good to do it. You know, it's difficult to find things you like. So my process was like I just kept on doing something I liked it, and I didn't think I would become a dancer. I have to say that it quite at some point, yes, of course, at some point you have to make that choice, but it was more something that I kept doing because I liked it, and at the end it happened that
So how did it happen?
It happened by continuing, by listening to what you like to do, and also respecting if sometimes there are moments where you need to quit. Like again, like I was very little going to ballet, and at some point I say I quit, and then I went back to it because I missed it. And when you keep doing something that you like, you can go wrong, but it's more probably that you can go farther when you really love something. So, and then at some point I took the choice. I said, okay, I want to go to the conservatorium, let's say, and
So
then
the conservatorium was in Barcelona?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was, so your focus there was contemporary dance?
Yes, exactly. Then at some point I decided I didn't enjoy that rigid technique from the ballet. Maybe I did enough. And I wanted to go into the conservatory for the contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
But funny enough, I went for the contemporary, and they decided to change me, to pass me to the ballet. Uh, so I said, okay, maybe they thought, sometimes there are also these kind of values that they see you skinny, they see you have potential, and they tell you, you should do ballet. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do ballet. And I could do it, but I didn't have the heart, I think, for it. So I ended up doing contemporary anyway when I finished my career.
So when you finished your studies, what would you say was your first big break? What really set you on this path?
It's always difficult after you finish the school. It's a big step, I think, for all the dancers to confront this gap after you finish studies. I think I was very lucky. My parents could give me a little bit of money so I could travel to do some audition jobs, to look for a job, because in Spain it was very difficult at that moment. It's still very difficult to find a job here as a dancer. So I have to say I worked very hard. So it was nothing like a miracle or something like that. I think I was very passionate, and I worked very hard, and I was very lucky that was not my first audition. I did few, but the first job I got was this project with Batsheva, which was part of it was partly a Swedish project and partly from Batsheva. It was a collaboration between Sweden and Batsheva, and that was a really great project. There was like 500 people in the audition, and were just choosing like 5-10 people. So
Wow.
again, it was not a miracle because it was a strong working, but you need to be in the right place in the right moment and be ready for it. It's a combination.
And you were. These days, it's not uncommon for artists and professionals working in our sector to take on multiple roles. And for you, it's artist and choreographer. Can you describe these two roles and how they exist discreetly and also overlap?
Yes, I guess to have this multifaceted abilities, it's now very common. It also depends from country to country. In Spain, it's very necessary because politics, we don't get that much support. At the same time, I also enjoy these different roles of being a dancer and being a choreographer. I mean, being a dancer, it's a great job. I think it's, if you like it and if you don't feel like a puppet, you know, some people can feel sometimes like being a dancer is just like following some commands or some instructions from a choreographer. But if you can really appreciate the job of being a dancer and feeling creative about it and feeling that you are not working to fulfill the wishes of a choreographer, but working for a art piece,
Mhm.
then it's very beautiful. Like there is this Roland Barthes, this philosopher who talks about the what disillusion, no, hmm, like the loss of the artist in favor of the art. I don't have the words in English, sorry.
Look that
The
one up.
disappearance of the artist in order to focus on the art. So I think that's really great. Is if as a dancer you can feel that direction, that you're working in a common place, a choreographer and dancer, to arrive to this art.
Mm. That the work is a collaboration between the choreographer and the dancer. So I assume when you work as a choreographer, that's also your philosophy. How do you work with other dancers when
So
you're a leader?
yeah, totally. It's not anymore like, you know, in the old times or the old school. It would be that the choreographer arrives and comes ready with certain steps, and as a dancer maybe you need to follow and learn. I think now we are all much more in this a bit more horizontal feel. Of course, as a choreographer, I'm the one who comes with the inputs, ideas, suggestions, but it's very much done in collaboration with the dancers. Yeah.
And do you find that you identify more strongly with one or the other as dancer or choreographer?
Now more and more I identify with the creator or choreographer mind situation, but it's slowly changing. I'm still working as a performer, dancer for other people, choreographers, and I enjoy it a lot, but it's more and more changing towards the other direction. I'm very happy about it, but I also I see the difficulties also, maybe to stay stable as a choreographer is not an easy, it's not an easy way. Yeah.
And do you often perform in your own work? Is that commonplace? Yeah.
Yeah, I did most of my works actually are it's a solo work, so I work a lot with myself. For me, you know, some people has a very direct focus on composition on big groups. For me, I need first to learn what's my interest on what I'm doing, and then I'm a bit more able, I think, to transpose to others what's the feeling or what I'm looking for. So for me, I don't work so much on this kind of static visual composition. I need to work with the feelings or with the personal sensation, and for that it helped me to work a lot with myself and to understand myself. So working as a solo artist, it's also it's a challenge, but it's also a very beautiful path where you understand not just about your work, but you learn a lot about yourself. And I think it gives you a lot of skills also to later communicate to others what's your experience or what you're looking for. Yeah.
Reading your CV, it would suggest to me that you're on a trajectory to a very successful career. I don't know where you see yourself in that career, whether it's sort of mid or early. But do you agree with that? Do you feel confident that you're set for success? And where do you see that taking you? What are your aspirations there?
Yeah, I find a bit tricky to describe a career as successful or not, because many times, like when we talk about success, it's a bit like goal oriented, and
Maybe
like
you can define what success is for you in answering this. Yeah.
yeah, because if we talk about goal oriented, it's like being famous. Like sometimes it's about being famous, and which I'm not famous, or being rich. I'm not rich neither. But in some sense, I do feel a success in the sense that I do, or I kind of do what I like, or I do what I like to do, and that's a personal success. That's for sure. I don't know if I should call it success or freedom, but freedom is also a tricky word to coin. So, but in that level, indeed, I feel very free or successful in the sense that I do what I love.
Mm-hmm. So you feel that you'll continue in this way? Is that, I mean, is there somewhere, is there a place that you really would love to be with your work in the coming years, 5 years?
Yeah, of course I have goals and ambitions, but I'm very much on the road. You know, I go through a process. I try to enjoy very much what I do. Of course, I have goals like I wish I would love to being able to do more and more choreography with myself and maybe with groups, being able to transfer all the works I've been doing also alone to more sharing it with groups. That's, for example, a purpose I would love to experience. But again, like for me, it doesn't work so much when you put a very strong focused goal and you lose the way into it. So I'm very much into trying to see what's now here happening with my life, with my work, and trying to follow also what this road is telling me, because sometimes you go to a direction and it's good to force, but sometimes it's like, okay, maybe that was not the way, and you find a new different way, which is totally amazing and fantastic. So it's always good to be aware, attentive of how things are moving. Like, for example, even now with the whole COVID-19 pandemic, you know, like as a choreographer, we are used to travel, to move to other countries, to work for other people in another place. But, you know, suddenly I have no idea how this is going to continue. Even like I have many thoughts and controversial thoughts about even medioambiental, how to say, ecological thinking around how are we going to sustain this, just like traveling, creating one thing, leaving one. I traveled to Taiwan just for one performance, coming back. Is this sustainable? Is this possible in an ecological, but also in this pandemic of the COVID-19 situation? So there are a lot of thinking, reflections around where are we going.
Yes, we're hearing a lot of those conversations, and it's an important time to reflect, obviously. You're also studying anthropology and human evolution, and that's something very fascinating to note. I mean, how do you see this coalescing at all with your dance career, or is it just a separate pursuit?
Yes, a lot of people ask me if I started studying because I'm slowly trying to quit dancing, and I always say it's the opposite. You know, I started studying because I think it's feeding or like coming together very much with my dance and choreographic career. So yeah, it's really a way to feeding my brain, my ideas, my imagination, and bringing it into the dance world, not at all like going away from it. And with anthropology, for example, I found something that for me was very difficult to find in other studies, and it's the connection with the body. Like, for example, anthropology is one of the, I don't know if the only studies that propose experience, body, physical experience with the world as a knowledge. Of course, anthropology is also using a lot of written intellectual references material to study. It's not just about experience, but it also considers the experience as part of our knowledge. And for me, that's of course very connected to body, to dance, and yeah, to what I'm doing with my career.
Really strong connection. How long have you been, how far into the course are you? Has it already heavily influenced your work?
Yeah, now it's been maybe 4 years that I'm studying. Since I'm combining it with my dance career, it takes a longer time to do. I still have 1 more year to finish my career. So yeah, I have to be very patient with that, but I like it a lot. And of course, it already for my last solo work, Likes, which is a solo I think I created during 2017. It was selected at Airwaves platform in 2018, and I've been touring a lot with this solo now. And this solo was very much influenced by my studies of anthropology. Actually, it literally came from a work assignment I had to do for the university, which was asking me to do research about prestige goods. And I took as a symbol of prestige, of representative of nowadays society, the likes in internet. So I started to do a research about which kind of body shapes, body movements, gestures, expressions are liked in internet, and why are they liked, and are we liking them because we are free to like them, or is there a certain control of those images that are published in internet?
Is there a ranking there? Was there a number one body position that came up in your studies?
I don't know if a number one, but of course there are many shapes, body shapes, that the moment I put them on stage, I think people was feeling, like people could recognize certain ways of moving, certain ways of looking, certain ways of positioning your body towards a camera. It's not the same to be profile, that where you show your curves of the body, and to be facing, or to be, so these differences actually the audience can recognize, and it's funny at the same time. You are confronted. It's like a mirror, you're like, okay, yes, it's true, like we recognize these shapes.
Do you find, as an artist and choreographer, that there are any particular themes or ideas that you try to communicate and make sense of through your work? And are there any particular expectations or ways of engaging audiences through these ideas?
Yeah, it's a bit maybe related to what I was explaining. Right now, my interest for my latest works has a lot to do with this relation between body and movement as a way of expressing, communicating, and in relation to how we engage with, like, society. How do we read? How do we value body shapes, gestures, expressions, and how sometimes maybe, because movement doesn't come in the first layer of communication. We always have the verbal communication, but movement is always there when we talk to each other, unless now that we are behind the screens, of course there is movement, but it's much more difficult to read each other now through the screens. But yeah, I'm very interested to movement, how movement and body is engaged in social issues, and maybe how sometimes movement, body shapes can create or habilitate certain hierarchies, and sometimes certain powers within society. If also, like, I don't know, like, I think I use this very much in Likes, in my solo performance, and in my new solo work, which I'm supposed to premiere this summer, but I'm not sure it's gonna happen. I'm still waiting for an answer due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Where and what's that work?
That's another solo work, which is called Spiritual Boyfriends. And it works a lot. It's about the relation between body and power, but not really an external power imposed to the bodies, but more the power that sometimes we impose ourselves to our own bodies, like some sort of self-discipline. We are all very self-disciplined. So it has a lot to do with that. And how power also is in our, not only in self-discipline, but also in personal relationships. There is power relationships in everywhere, from your quotidian life conversations with your partner, your friend, to bigger structures like political, cultural, religious structures. So I'm working on that with the new solo. I'm also in a creation with a group, in an online creation with a group in Germany right now. So it's very busy times also.
Is that online creation a response to COVID-19, or was it already in the process?
No, it was a response. Like I was supposed to be now in Germany, creating a group piece for 8 dancers, and was supposed to premiere now in May. And yeah, the whole thing with the COVID-19 exploded. So I went back to Barcelona. We stayed 2 weeks on a hold, like not doing anything, just trying to also reflect around the situation and what should we do. And at the end, we decided to go for an online process. And so right now I'm having this kind of long talks at Zoom application, trying to see how to build a dance performance through an online process. Yeah,
So what are some of the key challenges coming out of that? I'm curious to know that, because there is a lot of talk about whether dance can exist, should exist, through these many digital platforms. There's some resistance. How are you finding that process?
Yeah, for me, I allow myself to go into it because for me it made a lot of sense, because I already work with digitality as a theme for likes, for spiritual boyfriends. Also, the other solo, digitality is one of the themes I work with, in the sense of control, body control, I was saying. And the piece I'm doing, or I was starting in Germany, also had to do somehow with digitality. So when we started, when the COVID came, I thought, to take this in a positive, as much positive as it can be, the situation. And we decided to go on a research online on how dance is in the online platform. So the creation right now is a lot about that, about observing how do we work when we have a camera in front, how do we feel attached or detached by being in a screen, how are certain platforms and applications for dance training, or dance like in YouTube or even TikTok applications. So we are working a bit like researchers, like almost like anthropologists, trying to see how the dance and the body works through the online. We are into that now.
Yeah, so you're tackling the platform head on rather than just trying to fit within it, inside it. Further to that, what kind of performance spaces and venues do you feel most suit your work, if any? Do you feel more aligned to any particular site or space?
Yeah, that really depends, I guess, on the performance. If I do a solo, then probably I would prefer like a medium-sized stage where I have some kind of intimacy with the audience. And but space is so much related also with the concept of a piece or creation. So actually it's a job. If you talk to a set designer would be super aware about how space has an influence on the way we're going to read the work. So actually I'm a lot now in a discussion for the new piece, the online piece I'm doing for Germany. I'm in discussion of how are we going to use the space, to engage audience or not, or to provoke a certain feeling or not. Yeah.
What about your collaborators? Do you work often with other artists within the dance field and from other fields?
Yeah, I'm constantly, I guess, collaborating with people in Barcelona. I collaborate for sure with different dancers. I also collaborate, or have a small collective with a social worker where we bring dance into schools and teenagers. Now I'm collaborating for the new piece with, of course, a designer, musician. Or when I do creation with other dancers. So it's always a collaborative process, I think, even though I work a lot as a solo artist, it's never alone. It's,
Yeah. I also want to ask you whether you're at a point in your career that you feel you could share some words of wisdom with young dancers and choreographers who are just setting out on their own careers.
Yeah, I guess I would encourage them so that they look for their own paths, maybe to listen profoundly to themselves and to question a lot, to be curious, not just about themselves, but to be curious about the world, and to be persistent on what they do, because there will be ups and downs, and it's very good you don't sustain yourself again on this idea of success or the idea of a goal, but that you sustain yourself on what you are passionate about or what you enjoy doing. And this is important, to do it little by little. I believe in long roads, long paths, and not short ones. So stay persistent, meaning that maybe one day it's a down, but if you stay there keeping what you love, probably there will be another wave.
I'm also wondering in this, I mean, you're in Spain, and we were talking about this earlier before we started recording, that it's much stricter there than it is in Malta. We've been in lockdown for 7 weeks, but we are able to leave the house, and there's a certain amount of freedom. And I want to ask how you're maintaining your practice in your confined space. You're on your own, so how you're staying active and still, you know, maintaining your choreographic and dance practice as well. What does that look like on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think in this process, as you say, since in Spain we are really locked in our home, for me, first of all, it's really engaging to be aware of what's going on. So I try to read a lot, but then physically, I also allow myself of what I'm saying, like having ups and downs. So there are moments that it's difficult to stay up with the body, but I realize that it's good to push it a little bit. So I'm I'm doing some yoga sessions for myself. It's something, you know, in that case it helps because you don't need that much space with yoga. It's a way I can keep with a very small space feeling active with my body, even though sometimes I really miss the connection to other people and a bit more creative sensation. Yoga for me I like a lot because it puts me in balance. You know, for me it's a way to put my body and my thoughts in balance, but I'm not super fan of always being in balance in your life. I believe that life it's also a bit chaotic, and it's okay for me. I enjoy a lot. Sometimes you have to visit extremes in order to later be back into this balance. So it's not about keeping yourself always in balance. And right now I find it difficult in my home to be able to play or to be creative by moving from one extreme to the other and then bringing myself into balance, etc. So it's a bit discouraging and a bit depressing, but I try to keep it up. Like yesterday we also had a meeting, online meeting, of course, with the dance community in Barcelona, and even if it's online meeting, it helped to realize that we are so many people in the community. You know, the sense of community. We are a lot of people in that, and that it feels like we have a bit more power also to say, okay, we are here, and we're gonna resist this moment.
We will. Thank you so much for your time today, Nuria. And I hope you get to premiere your work, your summer work,